wasn't like I watched it and it was a complete dud. I mean, if it was so terrible, I wouldn't have finished.
You wouldn't
But
have survived the whole ordeal.
Exactly. Like I definitely gave it views it didn't deserve because I was, people think you.
Hi, this is Juniper.
Hi, this is Elle.
And welcome to another pod episode of Juniper and Elle show, or whatever we're calling it nowadays. So today, I think, because I have a slight cough and recovering from a cold. First of all, I feel like I sound like a chipmunk. So if I do sound like a chipmunk, that's why. But more importantly, we thought we switch things up while my brain is in recovery mode. Most of the times, we tend to talk about shows we enjoyed watching.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're going to switch it up and talk about shows that we made it through. So,
Yes.
Meaning we didn't quite enjoy it as much as maybe we originally thought, or, it was maybe something we hate watched by the end. So, yeah. And I think we decided on talking about shows that only one of us watch, right? My show is a costume fantasy xianxia, which is Till the End of the Moon. And yours is, I'll let you introduce yours.
It's supposedly a rom-com, but it's a modern rom-com.
Supposedly a rom-com.
Yeah.
That says it all. It's very telling.
Called Only for Love. So, and I think they both came out last year?
Last year. Yeah. Mine came out earlier in the year last year. Yours came out later.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all supposed to be these huge shows.
Yes.
Well, and I think they were huge shows.
They both starred by how do you say name?
Bai
Lu. Yeah, they both starred her, but she's not the reason she's kind of the reason we also thought.
Well, I don't know. Maybe in mine it is. She is part of the reason. So you wanna kick off yours first while I recover from my whatever it is that I have.
Yeah. So Only for Love stars Dylan Wang and Bai Lu. And I actually read the novel before I knew there was a drama. And I actually thought the novel was cute. It was not like your typical rom-com, but it was cute. And then it was until I finished reading the novel that I found out Dylan Wang was starring in the adaptation. And at the time, I was still a big Dylan fan because he was in the big drama Love Between Fair and Devil. And then we watched him in The Rational Life. And so I still had like great feelings about like Dylan's like, oh, up and coming. Oh, and we also watched what was that Meteor Garden?
Meteor Garden.
Yeah. So we actually like binge a lot of Dylan Wang
we went through our shows. Dylan phase because he was so good in Fairy and Devil, right? Yeah. This is what you do when you like someone. I mean, he could do no wrong. Well, he could do wrong. I mean, we recognize that he has his weaknesses, right? He's not suited for all sorts of, like most people aren't suited for everything, but we cherry picked the ones we wanted to watch that were suitable.
Right. So I was like, oh, I just finished reading this novel. I like him. So I was actually really looking forward to Only for Love. And it was like probably the first show I saw him where he plays an adult in the modern setting. And then I had never seen Bai Lu in anything, so I had no preconceptions of her. But the story in a nutshell is he's like this cold CEO and she's this bubbly reporter and she's trying to catch a break and write like the story, and he never gives interviews, and somehow she is presented in front of him and she tries to seize the opportunity, and that's how they meet. But I would say I don't know what happened, but like there was
sorry.
Like, okay. Like in the novel, so there's a very twisted reason why you don't buy their love. So in the story, regardless if it's novel or drama, so she has a boyfriend when they first meet. So but then it turns out the boyfriend cheated on her with this supposed rich girl, and the rich girl is the niece of Dylan Wang. Like Dylan's a CEO and he's like a young uncle. And so she thought
Sorry. I'm sorry. I kind of remember that now. I remember because I originally anticipated this show after Fairy and Devil because that was the next show he shot. And I remember
Mhm.
reading the synopsis and sort of listening to the audio book a little bit, and I was like, he's supposed to play someone's uncle. But anyways, keep going.
Yeah. So the reason she got close to Dylan is not just because partly big one is to help her career because she's a very young up and coming reporter. She's not well known. She's won some writing awards, but she's not like well known. But the second thing is she wants revenge on her ex because she's like, well, if I'm with him, then I become his aunt, which is a very Chinese thing to be like, you have to call me aunt. Like
so
like the
mature.
whole
Maturity.
yeah. It's like this, like the generational.
Was this book written by like a grade schooler? No? Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure I think she's written other things. I need to go back because I feel like I actually read her other stuff, which is how I came upon the novel in the first place. But anyways, I would say when I watched it in live action form, it was so uncomfortable. Like there were so many scenes because okay, so she meets his real niece. He has a real niece who is young, but it's not the girl that cheated with her ex-boyfriend. And so she's kind of like trying to be like not nice. She doesn't want to be outrightly rude to this girl, but she's in her mind like, "Oh, you're the one who my boyfriend dumped me for," right? So there's a bunch of misunderstandings, but they're not comfortable or fun to watch. And the girl who plays the niece, the real niece, she's really cute. Like I actually liked her story, which was not written much in the novel. They created for the drama. She's paired with Miles Way, who I also had first time watching it. And Miles Way, I don't know. I actually eventually watched another drama because of him in this. I watched I May Love You, which so his acting is probably very limited. I feel like based on the two dramas I watched, but for this character, he plays a very straight-laced professor, and he's like friends with Dylan's character, and so she's crushing on him, and he's considered old, like because she's young, she's like out of college, and he's like an old man in his early 30s.
But he's a very good-looking, comfortable to look.
He's very good looking, and the whole time I'm watching him, like he should have been the CEO character. They should have cast him.
I asked you this, right? I saw clips of it, and I was like, am I glad I didn't watch this shit? Because why does Dylan look like some pipsqueak? I mean, and I love Dylan, right? Like he looks like a little pipsqueak dressing like Archie dressing up like an adult with his he had glasses or something and his hair slicked back in a tux. Except he looks so uncomfortable in that. And then I was like, and then you put him next to Miles Way, I think who was also starring. I was like, I didn't know he was in this, and I was like, that guy outshines him by like 10 times. Right?
Yes, yes. Like I was literally watching it for the second CP. Like I was not. Yeah, I just felt Dylan was so miscast because he did not feel authentic as a CEO. He did not have the gravitas that you would believe that this is a young prodigy type guy who would take over the family business, which is essentially what he was doing.
He looks like he's playing dress up, like I said, right? Was that the feeling?
Yeah, and it was basically a big whole Louis Vuitton like advertisement. Like because he's rich, he is like an ambassador, I guess, or spokesperson. Like they dressed him in very nice, expensive designer clothes. So that was one of the draws I think for audiences is like he lives in this like beautiful modern home, and he actually has a nice wardrobe. You know, some shows.
So he dressed well, but did he carry it off well? Is my question.
It's not I mean he could wear the clothes, but his acting was so it was like he wants to be cold, so he just had no expression on his face. But then the eyes are dead. There's no like the eyes are dead, like lifeless.
Would you say maybe he was uncomfortable in the role because he wasn't up for like because Dylan, I think he has been, I think he said this in interviews past, like some roles he just doesn't get, right? And he's not old enough to get, or he hasn't lived that experience. So so maybe he felt uncomfortable, like it's not him. Whereas like when he's Dao Mingsi in Meteor Garden, sure, it's a ridiculous show, and his character is all over the place sometimes as a character, but you kind of bought the rich like
the bratty boy, right?
Yeah,
I feel like here he's trying to play the bratty boy behind the cold facade, but then you don't see the you don't see the curtain, like lifting to see the behind. It's not like Oz, right? Like you lift the curtain, you see the real him. Like there's no real him. That's like him, and that's all you get. It's a very one flat note CEO character. And then okay, so then now you're trying to buy into this romance where she's basically lying to get close to him, and she's very bubbly, but I don't know why, but the bubbliness is very fake too, because she's faking it up, like she's hamming it up to get close to him because he's supposedly very hard to like get to. No one really even knows what he looks like. He's hard to interview from a journalist perspective, and so she thinks if I charm him, and then there's like a level of over confidence where she's like, oh, I'm really beautiful, so he'll definitely love me. Oh, that was something they kept repeating, like, she's so beautiful, she's so beautiful, how can she be single? And I'm like, why is this even a thing? Like, I mean, if she's a good writer, he'll pick you to write.
There's a Greek chorus in the show, sounds like.
Yeah.
You know how Greek choruses work, right? In Greek tragedy and comedies?
They keep announcing.
They tell you like how you're
Yes.
supposed to feel, or they reinforce the point. Yeah, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so then there's actually a third female lead. She is like a best friend. She has like a weird side story with another friend of Dylan's too. So it's like these three couples basically. But she is very pretty. Like, she's so pretty. So it's almost ridiculous to be like, to say, oh my god, like the main girl is the prettiest. And then you have these two other actresses who are extraordinarily beautiful in their own right, and they have more interesting storylines. Like, so it was okay. So just to sort of summarize everything, like, so I did watch it, the whole thing, even though there were times where I didn't want to finish, but I did watch it for the main for the Miles Way
second CP, right?
The second CP. I really wanted to see that story. And they did like, like a tropey where he got jealous when he realized like another, because she's a college student, so she was like showing up in his classes every other time to like listen to him. And then finally this other male student started to like he confessed to her, but she's like, oh no, I don't feel that way. So she would, it's a very clean cut story. And then they did a proposal scene between Dylan and Bailu, and it was like the worst proposal I have ever seen. It was like in the office, like they had just finished in a corporate event. I'm like, what is this? Like, he's rich and he has no romantic soul in his body. Like, at no point
did he book though? Was that supposed to be the way it is in the book?
I don't remember the proposal, but like in the whole thing, she kind of pursues him, right? So there's only one scene where he like ran into her apartment and like kissed her voraciously. That's the only sign you ever saw him like physically like want her. But like other than that, you see no you see no wanting, you see no romance. There's no romance.
No chemistry, like, I'm assuming, between the two of them either.
No, they come off more like brother and sister for me.
That's the worst. That's the worst. Like I've always said, I think in past shows, right? Like, you may not be the best actor or actress, but if you let me buy into your chemistry dynamic, I'd buy it, right? Like, that's all you need, especially most dramas have a love story. The love story doesn't work. I don't care how much you emote, right? It doesn't work. So it sounds like that's a killer. And
I mean, the most romantic moment, if you want to call it that, is when he finds the truth, which is that she, basically was trying to get close to him because she confused his real niece with the fake. So the other girl was pretending to be rich. She wasn't really rich, and she was so the ex-boyfriend was also lied to. But the moment when Dylan's character found out the truth, and he's like, I don't care. Like, he's basically saying she can do like the most horrible thing to me and I will forgive her. And I guess I'm supposed to be like, like that's what I'm supposed to go. I didn't. I was like, why would you want to be with someone who like outright tricked you? Like, and why do you like her for, like, don't you at least question like her feelings or any of her actions from that point? Like,
but wasn't that the case in the book? And you liked the book.
I know. I don't know why I don't like the live action. I think in a book you can imagine it, and you can, like, certain tropes they can you can get away with it, I feel. And then but when you're seeing it play out in like this quote unquote real life setting, you know, like they show a lot of like the office that she works in, his office, like I think when you see it in real quote unquote real life, or maybe it's the way the execution is, like where you're like, is this
book? Because if that's what you're saying, it's the issue with the setup, then it's a book issue, right? That's a story issue. But let me ask you this way, right? If they had better chemistry and their story made you believe they truly fell in love, right, over time, so by the time the truth was revealed, you would then forgive the other person because you love them.
You might be in his line of thinking, right? You might be like, yeah, like totally, regardless of what happened, I'm still 100%.
So it's the latter, right?
Yeah,
the issue is execution.
I mean, and I think I made this comment to you too when I was watching My Boss, which I think I was like, he could have played that Dylan character because he's actually the real age of the CEO. The CEO is supposed to be like 25, 26.
Right.
And Chen would have been the actual age and had the gravitas to like pull off like these like boardroom scenes. That was the thing. There's a lot of boardroom scenes. It's not like you know, remember when we were talking about My Boss, like he's a lawyer, but you don't actually see him in action as a lawyer. It's more like office, you know, shenanigans. But like in Only for Love, they try to do like scenes where it's just Dylan and a bunch of older men like duking it out and talking about like, you know, what to do next, and it didn't fly at all, and he was too young without the acting chops to pull it off, is what I'm trying to say.
Was it more Dylan though? Because I feel like as an outsider who hasn't watched the show, I've seen clips and stills. I would say that just the whole look looks cheap, because that's why I'm surprised when you said earlier that Louis Vuitton is the main theme, or at least for him, because you know, like she looks horrible. Like I'm not
she doesn't have fan,
but I'm not a hater, right? Like I just feel like, oh, she's okay, like she's cute, but she's not a great beauty in my book. Okay, she looks like my aunt. She makes me feel auntie, and I'll tell you more about my auntie feelings about her because she features in the other show I'm going to talk about soon. And so the fact that I wonder if they have to say she's a great beauty with the Greek chorus because she's not a great beauty. That's the problem. And then the way they dressed her, because I've seen pictures of them, I'm like, what's with the giant colors and why do they look like they're like country bumpkins? I'm sorry.
Well, okay,
they look like country bumpkins.
So for her, she is the worst dressed of the three females. That's
a horrible disservice.
No, it's true because the niece comes from money, right? She's related to the CEO, so she actually has nice tailored dresses. She has the designer purses, but they're done in a cute way because she's a young college graduate. So she's very girly, but she's not over sugary. That's why I liked her with Miles Way. Like they were a cute couple. The third girl, I don't know her name. She's really beautiful. She's more of like they kind of paint her as like a misunderstood femme fatale. So she carries off like a lot of cocktail dresses, and she has a short, you know, bob cut. She looks really like her clothes are probably not designer, but they look okay. Like they make sense with the character. I think with Bailu, like she's not rich. Like her character is not rich, right? She's like a normal girl. So I think they try to dress her in like office clothing, but they don't want to make her look too polished. And she's supposedly younger, right? She's supposed to be mid-20s, but I think in real life she was closer to 30 when she filmed. I think, or late 20s. So, and also they try to dress her younger to match Dylan, I think, because he is a lot younger than her. So I don't know. Like he looked fine. I mean, I think a lot of the comments were like, "Oh, he looks so good," but he could not. Oh, and the glasses. The glasses were a thing in the novel because the character kept pushing it up on his nose, and so Dylan keeps doing that. Like every scene, his hands are across his face, like pushing up these little skinny, thin rimmed glasses, and it looks like a tic after a while because. It's like he's nervous and he's
well, he probably was nervous acting that show out. I'm sorry. So, would you recommend someone watch this, or maybe not recommend because maybe you don't want to recommend? But how would you describe the show to someone then?
I think it was an ambitious rom-com is what I would say because it had three couples, so it was trying to do a lot in a short amount of time, like to fit three love stories in there. I would say it's still worthwhile to watch for the second CP. Like like I said, I
Mm.
actually went to look for Miles Way's other rom-com where he is a lead called I May Love You, which was also based on a novel, and he plays a CEO in that one, but like a goofier one. So I don't know. I think it wasn't like I watched it and it was a complete dud. I mean, if it was so terrible, I wouldn't have finished.
You wouldn't
But
have
there was
survived the whole ordeal.
exactly like I definitely gave it views it didn't deserve because I was people think you people think you watch it for the main CP. I'm not watching it for the main CP. In fact, they're like very negligible at a certain point. You just watch it for the
They need
side
a
character.
non-main CP cut. Which remember we talked
Yeah.
about that Youku in China. The apps apparently allow you to only exclusively watch clips of a certain character or actor. Or maybe they have it for CPs. Then that's your dream right now. You could be like, I want to show this. I want to watch this show, but only with these people in it.
Yeah.
Just their bits.
It would have been fun, and it would have been a lot shorter.
Mm. Yes.
Maybe
How long was the show
four to
again?
five. I want to say it's 20 something episodes. I need to double check
And it's
that.
still too long. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
20 something is as short as it gets usually.
I think it's 20
Still too
something.
long.
Yeah, don't quote me on that. I mean, I don't think it
Mm.
was that long to begin with, but like I said, I mean, there are definitely things I enjoyed. It wasn't because of the main couple.
Mm.
But anyways,
Well, you survived. Yay!
yay!
I'm
And I
glad
don't. Yeah,
for you.
you don't have to go watch it now.
So that I don't have to. Yes, you watched it, so I didn't have to. Thank goodness. So thank you for doing that. You shielded that bullet. So
But
my turn.
now, yeah, yours is much
Right?
longer. Was it?
Yes, I hate watched. Well, it's not hate watching. I suffered just like everyone else in the show who are suffering so grandly. So my show is Till the End of the Moon. 长月 烬明 was the Chinese name, and it came out early in 2023 on Youku, and I think it was like their biggest IP last year.
Yeah.
And the reason I checked it out was really out of curiosity, I would say. It came out right after the Starry Love. If you recall, you and I loved the Starry Love, and it was kind of the first show of the year last year on Youku. And this was the next big thing, and it was the big thing. It was their big budget. Like, I mean, you could not avoid the show even if you wanted to, like, unless you lived under the rock, right? Like, I think on
Mhm.
YouTube, there were so many, like, clips and marketing blitzes for that show.
Even the amount of merchandise they released
Mhm.
at launch was amazing. Like there was a lot of merchandise for the
Yes,
show.
you and I
without...
gripe. We're like, oh, the Story of Love has no merchandise.
I had nothing.
I
They had
know,
a
like nobody
keychain.
cared. Yeah, and then this show had like everything ready to go, and you're just like, oh well, they're
Yes.
trying to make money, right?
Yeah.
So it's a big
Yeah.
budget production, and like you said earlier, it also stars Bailu as the female lead, but the male lead, which is the main character, I would say he's the headliner, is Liu Luoyunxi. Luoyunxi, I forget. Anyways, he was the. You may not be as familiar with him, but he's pretty popular.
Mhm.
He was the second male lead in Ashes of Love. I liked him in Ashes of Love up to a point, like I was saying, because then he tanked as a character, but that was on purpose, right? I have to say
Right.
that after watching this, I like him less.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Why do you say that?
It's not his fault per se. I think it's just the show. It had. I would describe so. Here's how I describe the show. It felt like a beautiful, expensive, bloody mess. And bloody is being both literal and figurative here, by the way. So, and I think you know
Yeah.
why, because I kept harping on it when I was watching the show.
Yeah,
And
you said they were using buckets of blood.
yes, the budget for blood was big. Alliteration, I love it. So let me talk about the show's kind of premise because it is based on a book. It's a little bit complicated. It's really about angst, right? So Bailu plays Li Susu, who is a cultivator who must save the world from the big bad evil lord who ultimately comes and takes over and destroys everything, right? Who is our male lead. She does this by going back in time in the body of someone else to try to kill him before he became powerful. The male lead in the past is kind of the time she finds him is kind of a weak, pitiful character. He's a prince, a fallen prince who is married to an abusive girl, like a xiaojie or a miss, right, from a rich, powerful family, and that's the person that the female lead becomes. Long story short,
Oh.
she tries many times to kill him or thwart him, even though he's really the victim here, right? Because you see this pitiful guy, he's like harmless, but everyone just beats up on him and abuses him. But of course, over time, he gains power and prestige eventually and goes back and takes over his country, goes on a revenge tour against the world sort of path. And along the way, though, he still manages, for some reason, to fall for her because I think it's because she's one of the few people in his pitiful life who has been kind to him in any sort of way, like even acknowledged him. Or at least that's how he liked her until he found out the truth, which is devastating, right? Which is she doesn't love me, she's here to kill me, basically, right? She will keep trying to kill me all this time, which in a way sets up for a very tantalizing story, right? Angst. Like I said, it's the theme of the show should be the story and the show should be angst. Anyways, so there's a lot of mutual hurting back and forth, misunderstandings. Just like any good old Xiansha, there's like different lifetimes, like recycling or repeat of their love story in that because there's the original time, like back in the past time frame where she jumps to, they go into a dream sequence where they basically lived out this tragic love story past life between a god and a goddess that they take on the personas for. Everyone comes out of that a little bit worse for the wear, right? And I think that also helps them fall more in love with each other, which again, you basically feeling these feelings, right, and see how tragic it is. There's a lot of and then they go back into the future, so then there's like a repeat third time is the charm type of thing with the story, right? There's a lot of dying, time jumping, reuniting, torturing each other, and I really emphasize torturing each other. Like literally, there is torture, misunderstandings, and then ultimately sacrifice. You intrigued yet? Like if I told you this was a story.
Yeah, actually, the story conceptually sounds interesting. Wait, at what point does she switch over from being his wife to her original self? So I'm assuming he falls in love with the original version of her, right? Not the wife.
Yes, and he becomes super obsessive. Like he can't let her go, which we all like a possessive, unreasonable guy. He is like that times 100, right? So if done well, it could be again very exciting to watch. And I think that was one of the reasons people like this show because the story is so. If you like angst, toxic angst, it serves it up in buckets along with
toxic, the main word.
The problem is in the execution. And the point to answer your actual question, which is at what point, right? I think, it's been a year since I watched it. She had to die. So
she couldn't just jump from the body. Yeah.
Communication is always the issue. The misunderstanding is the underlying driver, right? Like he basically thought she didn't love him and was always going to betray him, even though he loved her like unconditionally in his mind. And told her he loved her, except the way he shows his love is a little bit odd sometimes, right? She's not good either because she does keep trying to screw him over. So, she gets no brownie points for that. So because of that, he can't trust her. And at some point, he actually abuses her like so much that she's basically at death's door because of that. So like I said, toxic, right?
Yeah.
He can't let her go, but he won't let her be free, but he won't let her enjoy life with him either. So he punishes her basically by keeping her kind of like a caged bird. And then at some point, it was, I think his brother, evil brother, that he usurped from, came and took over his city. And in the process, she got killed. Meaning he had a concubine, who was her sister actually, and her. And the guy was like, oh, those are his women. Let's see which one he loves more. He has to choose or something, right?
Oh.
And Tan Taijing, that was his name in the past originally, basically decides that he's going to choose his official concubine, but not because he didn't love the female. It was kind of a spiteful move, okay? Because what he did, so they were standing on a city wall, like the two girls were being held hostage, right? By the evil brother. So this is really high drama. So it's very, like in short clips, it's very titillating to watch. It makes you want to watch the show. She's like, I think it was also like it coincided with a great chance to try to kill him. I know
Mhm.
there's all sorts of weird magical, wishy-washy stuff happening too. So she jumped off the city walls. So
Oh.
he thought that she killed herself because he didn't choose her, and he was like, he wouldn't let her. So, but she really wanted to go back. She's like, I'm done with this. I
Yeah.
gotta go back
Yeah.
home, right? Like,
Oh,
she wasn't, I
funny.
think, yeah, she wasn't truly fully like in head and over heels with him. I think he fell
Yeah.
first and he fell harder. This is my interpretation, okay?
Yeah.
But nobody tells anyone anything, right? So she dies and he couldn't let her body go. He like literally, and I know this because even in the book it's even worse. He kept her body like in ice for like a week or two until it started rotting, and he wouldn't let anyone touch it, and he like slept next
Oh.
to it. Yeah, it's that kind of toxic.
Oh.
Because he just couldn't let her go. When
Yeah.
of course her soul's gone back to happy future where like whatever, she's like, I'm out of here. So anyways, so that's lifetime number one, sort of. Like you get
Yeah.
the gist of the story, right? Like I said, I am not a issue. I don't have an issue with toxic angst if it's entertaining and done well. And that's why I think I kept watching the show, because I was like, oh, but the premise, there's so much promise for
Yeah, I
that
was
type
gonna
of
say this.
toxic
Yeah.
angst.
Like, I just
But
have to get past this storyline.
yeah, I just have to get the next one will be better, right? Like it'll get better. Oh, they'll learn to talk to each other, and there'll be more development. But no, they're like high school toxic angst, like high schoolers, executing toxic angst. You're like, why? It could have been done much better with more toxic. What is toxicity? How do you
Yeah.
Okay.
Toxicity, yeah.
Anyways, yeah, or even more angst, but it just feels like they're stuck in like a washing machine and it's cycling through and through and through. And you're like, someone push the stop button right now. Take out the wet clothing. You overstuffed it. Take some out. Half the load. It'll wash much better, right? Like that's how I felt at the end. So and I think part of the reason afterwards I learned is the author wrote this. She said this because I think people were like, "What kind of stupid story is this?" She's like, "Oh, like give me a break. I wrote it in middle school." Well, I was like, "No wonder."
Oh, funny. That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah. I was like, middle school or high school. I think it was middle school. It wasn't even high school. I was like, well, no wonder it has,
That's
high
hilarious.
aspirations, the execution of, a 12-year-old, right? Like
That's
literally.
awesome. That's actually
Yeah.
really awesome. I
So part of
see now
it,
I want to watch it.
yeah. So part of it is the story. Like if you watch it on fast forward and skip certain things, it's enjoyable on its own. Like I said, this is how I finished it. But let's talk about the execution, right? Because it is partly the issue with the execution. I think part of it is they had to cut the show down to 40 episodes. Because of the limitations, right? Guidelines
Yep.
around show length. So that probably did not help.
Mm-hmm.
And it really showed towards the end. It felt really rushed and things just made no sense. I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense at the beginning anyways, because the way this premise was written and by a 12-year-old or whatever, how old the author was. But more and more as the show progressed, it made even less sense. Like threads of stories just left hanging, and you're like, what happened here? What happened to this character that showed up for 2 seconds again after 30 years or 500 years? Why are they here and never to be talked about again? Like, does that make sense? Like continuity.
So
Makes no sense.
yeah, like a really big cast, and they probably
Yes.
wanted to put the characters in, but they couldn't really spend time fleshing out their stories. Yeah.
Yes, but the side characters. I actually like some of the side characters, and I would say, before I go there though, I want to talk about the main leads because you did right in your thing. You said if Dylan and Bailu maybe were miscast. I would say there was a little bit of that happening. I don't know about it's miscasting, as how they execute it, right? Like I can see Lo Yunxi as the big bad he plays like the frail, beat up guy very well because we saw him do that in Ashes of the Lot, right? He was and that was the reason for his revenge arc.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Although it went a little bit overboard, right?
Yeah, I didn't really like
this similar thing, except he's way more. But it's really hard to buy him as the big bad here because he doesn't look that imposing. So he's lost a lot of weight. In fact, he looks anorexic, which is not helpful under all those layers of clothing and the big hair. Like he's so skinny that I couldn't even look at him half the time unless it's just on his face. But even his face kind of looked like gaunt and skeletal. He's still
Yeah.
very refined and pretty looking, right? It's just,
Yeah.
my God, boy, can I give you 2 rice cookers of rice and 5 pounds of meat? Like, go eat your lunch first, right? Come back. So that doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason he was so skinny, I heard, was because he got sick and injured from overwork and on-set accident, so he never fully recovered.
Oh.
And I think by
yeah.
nature, his physique, he was a ballet dancer by training. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
That's why he walks the way he does. I've noticed that even from Ashes of Love, he walks like a male dancer on stage. And it's very graceful, but it's problematic actually in the show too, because he feels like he's posing for the stage, like like male dancers strike poses.
Yeah.
They walk in a certain very affected way. That's how he
Mhm.
comes across, and it takes me out of the like he's in his own like ballet. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Interesting.
Which is fun. Huh?
Side random question. Do you think Yang Yang does that? Because he's also a trained dancer. I know people
Maybe, but
say not the
I
same.
know. Yeah, I don't see Yang Yang as a dancer when I see him on screen, but then I don't watch that much of him.
Yeah.
When I saw Luo Yuxi for the first time, even Ashes of Love, I thought, oh, he's very graceful. He walks like a dancer. And when I looked up his background, I was like, oh, no wonder. Because I watch a lot of ballet. You know that I love ballet. So I was like, oh, no wonder. He walks like a ballet dancer. Duh. So, but it doesn't quite work when you need the male dance, like the male lead, not dancer, male lead not to be a dancer. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and when cast opposite Bai Lu, it's even more problematic. Here's why. Bai Lu in this show comes across as extremely cavalier and kind of like rough, if that makes sense. I don't know how to say it, but I think you might have hinted at it too on your show. Like,
she was the same. I mean, having not seen your show, she was very much like that in Only for Love, because she had this. I think it was meant to be sassiness.
Crass and machismo kind of aura around her.
Yeah. Like that's why I said overconfident. It's like a very self-assured, like he won't say no to me, or I'm just gonna be in his face and it'll charm him. But there was no charm to it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't know if it's her persona, or she learned to act this way, or that's just how she is in real life, which is fine for certain characters. It does not work here. Right? He's supposed to be the strong, evil one. You come off, the girl comes off as like the street gang leader who's about to shake him. I was like, huh? How does that work, right? Like, she can't play frail in this show. And she has to play frail at some point because he abuses her like really badly at certain points, right? He locks her up and like starves her and she's cold and I think she goes blind at some point. Like they hit all the tropes.
Can I ask, do you think she's acting that way because she's trying to, we like to use the word subvert, like that trope of because she knows she has the ability to leap time and survive, like that she has that she feels like I'm gonna be strong, like I won't let you, like I won't show my weakness, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, do you think that's part of the character, or that's...
No, I think because Lee Susu is supposed not to be a crass person. Lee Susu is supposed to be her original persona from the future, is a refined cultivator. So no.
Interesting.
And it was the most crass in the dream sequence that they relived, where she's supposed to be this righteous goddess against this other bitchy goddess who is personified by her bitchy sister. Oh, so there's like really, I hate to use the word because I'm female, but really there's 2 very bitchy characters when I watch this. One is the female lead and one is the designated bitchy character, which is her evil sister. Right? So I'm like, oh my God, I don't really want to watch 2 bitchy people out bitch each other. One intentionally, the other one not so intentionally. And here the male lead is on his own universe emoting, playing out his own like Romeo and Juliet toxic like love story. Like it didn't quite work. Does that make sense? The chemistry was not there. I think they were just playing their role. It was like them acting out the dream sequence, except the whole show was them acting out someone else's fantasy, a 12-year-old's fantasy, apparently. Right? The writer's fantasy.
You know what this kind of pivoting again, but like it reminds me of, like, when we think about Goodbye My Princess, where the
Hmm.
male lead is considered like the abuser, but like you're telling me about like someone who sounds like 1,000 times worse,
Yes,
and
he's supposed to be balanced.
you're
You
supposed to
sympathize with the
like,
male lead more here.
yeah, and then you know how like we say, oh, the princess in Goodbye My Princess is always like doing stuff and running off, but like it's definitely different. Like just to compare and contrast the two relationships, this it sounds like there's a little bit of a similarity, and yet like one is definitely beat upon a lot harder,
Mm.
maybe because it's set in a realistic environment versus this, like you said, fantasy situation where you can get away with worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. So why did you keep watching though? If the first love story was so toxic, and then the secondary was also like
Because
toxic.
I don't mind angst and toxicity, so I had to fill in the blanks and be like, okay, if it was acted differently and it wasn't so ridiculously like executed, this could have been better. And if every time bitchy people came on screen, I just fast forwarded or
So there
and
weren't even a secondary CP to root for? At least I
it
had
was
that.
the third lead. The second lead male was just like Wood. And he's pretty famous now, Deng Wei. He was the second male lead. I mean, he looks nice, but he's just Wood. So let's just skip past him. The third male lead, he's not even famous, was actually very likable. Him and his girl, which is a fox demon, they had the best chemistry, and their story got cut short and never to be revisited with any logic or reason. I think in the book they didn't really have a story, so they did expand that for I think the two actors to have a third CP, or maybe it's a 2.5 CP because Anyways, I wanted to see their story. Okay, I bought their story. It was sexy. It was romantic. It has some angst, a lot of angst potential, but I haven't heard of them since then. I think the girl's more famous than the guy now, but I would love to see them again in something. So that's all I'll say on that. Anyways, yeah. So that's the acting department, right? Like I cared about the side characters more, and I wish they gave them more screen time. By the end, I just lost interest, and I think I skipped almost the last 10 episodes. Like I fast forwarded every just to see the ending, and the ending was a super disappointing ending. I don't even know what to make of the ending.
How did it end? Did they end up happily ever
I think he
after?
sacrificed himself to become the bad guy. I think this is my interpretation and understanding. And to save the world, he had to die. So he died. And then she had
Oh.
his kid. But then he was in the clamshell. So I don't know if he was alive in the clamshell. Was I just
It's his
what's
turn to
going
be
on?
frozen.
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't know. I think in the book he survived. Like they reunited after yet another hundreds of who knows, right? Like how these shows stories work. So oh, you mentioned earlier the buckets of blood. So the blood
Yes.
budget. I think I kept texting you because it became comical. I was like, I think I texted you at some point, even in the first like 15 episodes. I was like, oh my god, the budget for this must be a third on the blood, right? Fake blood alone. And good thing we didn't you can make a drinking game out of this. Except if you did, you would have no livers left. Well, liver left, I guess. You only have one liver. Like at some point towards the end, I think I just started laughing out loud every time someone threw up blood, and usually it was Tan Tai Jing who was throwing up blood, like the two main characters, but the guy more than the girl. I think he thinks he looks really pretty when he throws up blood, because I think his fans like to see him like suffer, because he suffers so beautifully. So, anyways, you got an anorexic male lead throwing up blood left and right. It almost felt like I was watching a episode of Family Guy. You know how like Family Guy sometimes they'll take fixate on a topic or a trope,
yeah.
and then
they
they'll
keep
do it
showing it.
continuously
Yeah.
while the characters are going about like normal daily life routines in an episode. So like a character will be like walking along the street normally talking to someone, and suddenly mouthfuls of blood would just start streaming out of their mouth and down their chin while they're like, but then they'll carry on talking like it's a normal conversation. That's how this felt like. Like he's walking, talking, and blood clothes out. Like, what is happening? Why is he? Oh, it's that time. The budget cost. We must use up all the blood we bought. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Anyways,
so would you recommend it, even though like
so I think if you're curious, check it out. It has some
Mhm.
it's definitely an entertainment factor. You have to use your imagination. The angst, if you like angst and toxic relationships, the setup is there. Just know that the bone is there, the meat is not there because it was written by apparently a middle schooler and then executed by like 10-year-olds. So that's how it feels like. I would definitely use the fast forward button generously. Yeah. I mean, I would say that if you hear everyone else, because there are people who love this show, they're like, "Oh, I can't! It's the best show ever." Like, are you sure? Have you watched other shows? Like,
They must love the toxic stuff. It's like a fantasy, right?
if you like it because of the premise, right? That's why I watched it. The premise. I would not call this a well executed drama, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, separate the framework you like, the trope you like from, and people are like, oh, he's such a great actor. Hey, look, he's acting, but he's acting. Like, he's posing more than acting, to be honest. And she is, I don't know what the heck she was doing. Like I said, she's just being Bailu, maybe, right? Like,
yeah.
Always the street gang leader, apparently.
I wonder which, like, between the two, the male leads, like, which one was actually better?
Well,
Dylan.
Watch it then.
Dylan or Leo, because, yeah, like, I mean, even though Leo's posing, at least, like you said, he's...
Oh, I've seen clips of your show, so I would say between the clips, Leo is better.
Yeah,
Just
I think
very
so,
different
too.
shows. Yes.
Yeah,
Leo is
Dylan...
doing
Yeah.
it. He's entertaining for the audience. Dylan is maybe just clueless for that role.
I just felt like he was miscast. I said, we enjoyed his earlier shows.
Yes.
They were all different genres, and I mean, there are things that we didn't watch, like he was in that office drama where he was like a side character, which we didn't even watch. But I felt like this was like his chance to do like a modern adult rom-com, and unfortunately for him, it didn't do well enough. I don't know if he'll get cast again in this type of stuff, because it was also like, if it's based on novel, it's a lot of lightness. It's not a slice of life, where you have to be real. So if he couldn't even do it in a cartoony way, it's a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
But well, I think in consensus we explain why we watched it, but these are not race quickly to go check it out. I mean, I think they were good for what they were. But I would say, yeah, like you said, watch it for the other CPs in the story.
Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah.
I said my piece. You said your piece. This was maybe longer than we intended it to be. So,
and I also stand corrected. It's 36 episodes for Only for Love.
So that is too long then.
You know what's funny? I just realized I finished watching it. I think they did a wedding special, which I never even watched. Like, there was like a wedding scene.
So it was definitely not your cup of tea then. If your reaction is like, I'll just jump over that.
Well, here I complain. I complain about the My Boss. Yeah, I complain about the My Boss wedding, and then I was like, oh yeah, Only for Love had a wedding. I forgot about that. And then it's like a full wedding, like him and Tux, her and a wedding gown. I didn't even watch it. I forgot. Oh, maybe I'll go check it out now.
Yes. Well, yes, if you ever do check out Till the End of the Moon, I would love to hear your thoughts after you can do the compare. I am not going to go watch Only for Love, okay?
No, don't do it.
Not anytime soon. You're like, don't do it.
Maybe if there's a Miles Way cut and I find one, I'll send it you. All right.
I think we're good. Let's wrap, and then we'll meet again soon enough. All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye.